Now, I'm sure that you've heard that Donald Trump is filling out his cabinet with many, many luminaries, as he defines them, other executive positions being filled up as well. He recently tabbed Linda McMahon, who did serve in his first cabinet. More importantly, she was a person who worked with the WWE, wrestling impresarios, TV doctors, bear carcass disseminators. You know that Donald Trump has a type. He is a creature of the New York tabloids of the 80s and 90s, and he watches a lot of TV. So we at The Gist, along with a predictive algorithm that we plug some of his previous choices into, have come up with a definitive list of Donald Trump and his new cabinet and executive level appointments. Here are some of them. Undersecretary for Arms Control and International Security Affairs, that'll go to Heidi Fleiss. Undersecretary for Civilian Security, Democracy, and Human Rights, Joe Namath. EPA Assistant Administrator for Chemical Safety and Pollution Prevention, Sally Jesse Raphael. Undersecretary for Growth, Energy, and the Environment, it's Alf. Assistant Secretary for Arms Control, Verification, and Compliance, Coco the Gorilla. Assistant Secretary for Nuclear, Chemical, and Biological Defense Programs, Leona Helmsley. She'll ride herd over that department. Assistant Secretary for Readiness, TV funny man, Fred Travellina. Chief Financial Officer and Assistant Secretary for Administration, the Cabbage Patch Kids. Assistant Secretary for Cyber Policy. This will be Irina and Louise Mandrell, but not Barbara. Surprising choice there. Undersecretary for Acquisition and Sustainment, he's decided to separate that out, and it will go to Charles Nelson Riley and Phyllis Diller. Oh man, I thought he'd go with Charles Nelson Riley for the block, or at least for Assistant Secretary for Indo-Pacific Security Affairs. But no, that's Spuds McKenzie. Assistant Secretary for Energy, Installations, and the Environment, Prom Mom. Assistant Secretary for Nuclear, Chemical, and Biological Defense Programs, the Duggars. There's a lot of them. Assistant Secretary for Special Operations and Low Intensity Conflict, Baby Jessica. Now she's out of the well. Assistant Secretary for Sustainment, Honey Boo Boo. Assistant Secretary for Air Force Acquisition, Technology, and Logistics. Well, that'll go to, it's not quite said, it's whoever will win the Star Search Team Dance competition. Assistant Secretary for the Air Force for Financial Management and Controller, the Unabomber. In the VA, the Assistant Secretary for the Office of Accountability and Whistleblower Protection, Dennis Rodman. Department of Veterans Affairs once more, Assistant Secretary for Enforcement and Compliance, Oksana Bayul. So good in those Winter Olympics so many years ago. Assistant Secretary of the Air Force for Installations, Environment, and Energy, High Pitch Eric.
My car is total. I couldn't drive it home.
Assistant Secretary for the Air Force for Space Acquisition and Integration, Joan Embry of the San Diego Zoo. Assistant Secretary for the Army for Acquisitions, Logistics, and Technology. They're not sure he's going to be able to get this through, but the idea is it will go to the third caller on the contest line, provided he knows the phrase that pays. Department of Transportation Chief Financial and Assistant Secretary for Budget and Programs, Sharon Osborne. Really a stalking horse for Ozzy, I think. NASA's Director of Research and Procurement, Lisa Nowak. Wait, who is Lisa Nowak? Oh, she was the astronaut who drove 15 hours wearing the maximum absorbency garment diaper to attack a romantic rival. Wait a minute, that kind of makes sense and actually might work. Okay, forget it. She's going to be replaced by a young Tony Danza. How do we get him young? Doesn't matter. Assistant Secretary of the Army for Civil Works, Robert the Preppy Killer Chambers. Office of Management and Budget, Sarah Purcell and Skip Stevenson. Inspector General for the Federal Maritime Commission, the Fonz. Not Henry Winkler, specifically says just the Fonz. Department of Commerce's Chief Financial Officer and Assistant Secretary for Administration, Joey Buttafuoco. And there we have, thank you to our advanced AI, much of the Trump cabinet and executive position staffing.